let's consider subroutines and parameter passing. So here I have module 1, submain and submain, and within that I declare two variables, x and y, and I assign a value 2 for each of these. Down here after submain, I will create a new sub multi for multiplication. I'm going to pass it two parameters. I'm going to pass it x and y, but I can call it anything I want here. Whatever name I use here, I'll use within this routine to refer to the parameters that I pass in when I call the routine. So I'm going to do MSG box, and I'm going to output A times B. I'm just going to output the product of A times B. And first of all, I have to call the routine within main. So I'm going to call the subroutine, and it should have, I want to spell this multi, short for multiply, multi, and up here I'm going to call it multi, and if I try to run it like this I get an error message because it tells me that it takes two parameters. So I'm going to give it x, which is 2, and y, which is 3, and let's run it and see what happens. And I get 6. 2 times 3 equals 6. Now what I've done is I've called this by value. I've taken the value in, but it doesn't affect the value of x and y in the main program. For example, if within this routine I set x to equal, or a to equal 5 and b to equal 10, I call the routine, it calculates this, and then I assign new values. Then after this, if I message box, if I output x, the value of x, and the value of y, if this has been changed within this routine, if I pass them in and it has been changed, then we will get 5 and 10. If it hasn't been changed, if I'm just passing in a copy to this subroutine, and this subroutine has had no effect on the values of x and y outside, then when I print these after this routine, if it hasn't had an effect, then it will remain 2 and 3. And let's see. We run it, we get the product 6, and we get 2 and 3. So we ran the routine, calculated the product, it changed the values of A and B in here, but the changing the values of A and B had no effect on the values outside. Because when I call it like this, I'm calling by value A as, this is making explicit, as integer, and by value by val B as integer. So this is what that was saying. That was a shortcut for that. It's exactly the same. I'm passing in a value, but it's not going to change the variable outside. And I run this, and I get 6, 2, and 5. If, however, I call this variable, if I call this procedure and I say by reference, exactly the same thing, by reference, this time I'm referencing the x and the y outside. I'm referencing these, so therefore these will be changed to 5 and 10, because when I make a change within the subroutine, because I'm calling by reference, I'm actually changing these, so it's a way of passing information out again from this routine. So when I run this, I get 6, and this time I get 5 and 10, because by reference I've passed in some parameters and I've changed the value inside the routine. By value I pass in the parameters, but I'm just passing in a copy of the data, but it won't affect the values outside. And that's called by value and called by reference. We'll do more of that for it to become clear later.